Hello and welcome to episode 13 of No Time to Cry. You may notice, one, we're in a different space. This is actually my home. Number two, it's not Laura sat with me, it is Paula. So we're your hosts for this episode. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Paula.
And today's episode, as you'll see, Laura's not with us. So unfortunately, she couldn't make it this week of recording. And I'm going on holiday for a week. And rather than make you wait another week before you hear from us, Paula is staying over at my house whilst I'm away to look after my gorgeous house rabbits, which I've spoke a tiny bit about.
Yeah.
How much do you love them, Paula?
I love them the most. Bunny sitting is what I call it.
We've been planning to do an episode with Paula for a little while anyway, because, you know, if you follow us on social media, you'll know that she started doing a lot of our social media content for us. We've spoke about her endlessly on this podcast. Specifically more for myself, she's been a friend of mine for coming up to kind of probably nearly 10 years this year.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense for us to put a face to a name when we're talking about Paula in all of these stories. And specifically this episode is to get a bit of a different view of what maybe grief has been like, more so from a friend's perspective, because I think there's a lot of people that listen to our podcast that actually haven't necessarily lost someone themselves, or they have, but maybe it was a long time ago, and they're wanting to know how to support their friends and family when they've lost someone. And I can give all of the praise to Paula, because she was a really, really great friend to me when I lost my dad. I don't think I would have particularly got through that period very well without you. You can cry anytime.
I know, I was going to say, don't set me off, because I am tiny tears. That's what I'm known as.
So yeah, we just wanted to give like a bit of a different view of things, have a chat about things from a slightly different perspective, get Paula's view of it. You know, almost you'll hear maybe my story from a slightly different side of things from Paula's view. And also Paula's known Laura for a very long time as well.
Yeah.
So I introduced them to each other because
You did, of course.
I can't help myself. If I've got friends, they all need to get along.
Friends.
They have to be friends as well. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And luckily, you know, they did. But you mentioned before, you probably got a lot closer to Laura after my dad died, didn't you? So
Yeah, definitely. I think that was just one of the things that brought us together. And I remember actually being at your dad's funeral, and me and Laura sat together and we just held hands the whole way through.
I didn't know
We
that.
did. I like grabbed hold of a hand, because I knew it was going to be hard for her. And obviously it was hard for me as a friend to watch you go through that, because obviously ever since I've known you, you've been a super strong person, and you are that by nature. You're strong, you work through things. So when you see your friend that you know has been there for you, strong for you, and you see your friend, you know, upset like that, obviously it really upsets you, and you're taken aback by it. So yeah, we spent the majority of the funeral holding hands the whole time.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm finding new things out.
I know.
So like I said, Paula and I have been friends for about 10 years. I moved up north, be 9 years this year. We pretty much, well, we became friends even before that, didn't we? Like we just basically, do you know what's weird? I don't remember how we got so close. It was like we met, and then I don't remember us gradually becoming friends.
I think I remember sending you a message on Facebook, like a private message, to be like, hi, like, I think I need to like say hello and introduce ourselves.
We met through our partner, like our partners at the time. So it was one of those where they were already friends, and then we were going away, weren't we?
Yeah.
And then we was like, oh, we better speak, because we're going to go on holiday together for a few days. But, you know, when you sent that message, I don't remember how then we got to being so close.
No. I think it was one of those things, and you see it all the time on Instagram and TikTok. There's loads of, you know, posts out there that talks about those people that you just meet and you instantly click with. And there is no kind of, oh, well, we did this and we did that. And that's how we became close. I sent that Facebook message. We then talked, I think, a lot. We went out, went on holiday, and you can't get rid of me. And here I am.
10 years
10
later.
years later, and we're together.
I know, which is mad. So obviously that's a bit of context as to how we've been friends. Like I said, we've been on holiday God knows how many times together now.
Yeah.
It's almost like an annual thing that we just book a little trip, a little girls trip
Yeah.
away together, and we've got plenty of stories, but perhaps they're for another day.
Yeah.
Another day. You'll notice I've got a glass of wine in my hand. This is a wine podcast. We're gonna have a little
Yeah,
drink.
mine too.
And yeah, I think actually it's funny because when Dad passed away, the day before I was in Dublin with you,
Yeah.
and we was having one of these little girls trips, and
Yeah.
Paula has a habit of whenever she's got a group holiday somewhere, for whatever reason, I now come along.
Always.
Hendu, don't know anyone. Shannon's coming.
Yeah.
60th
Always.
birthday. Do I know the woman whose birthday is? No, I don't. Is
You're
Shannon coming?
Yeah.
Yes, she is. Of course she is. Have I ever said no when you've asked me to many?
Absolutely not.
No. So even now amongst Paula's family, everything, I have basically just become a family member.
Yeah.
People she works with, I go on their works nights out. I've been on works nights out.
You have.
I don't invite myself, guys. She just wants me there.
Of course.
And
who wouldn't?
who can blame her? But yeah, so we had been in Dublin and we literally had flown home, I think on the Sunday night. And you were in work on the Monday, but I'd had it booked off because obviously it was my anniversary. As we know, the day my dad died, it falls on my anniversary. Or maybe we'd landed on the Saturday and it was the Monday or something. I can't quite remember. But you were obviously one of the very first people that I called to tell them what had happened. And for context, obviously Paula's been involved throughout the story of my dad over the years. She knew in depth kind of what I'd been through, watched me do loads for my dad, watched me have to go through that journey of taking a step away. She's held my hand through the whole entire journey. So how did you feel when I called you?
I knew something wasn't right because you'd called me.
Yeah.
You rang me. So whenever we text each other, usually voice notes, very lengthy, 5-minute voice notes, which we love.
Yeah.
And I knew as soon as I seen a call, I was thinking, what's she phoning me for? I was like, I know. And then as soon as you said, just my heart sank. And I just knew that you would have been in pieces. And I think for me, it was just anything that I could possibly do to be there for you and support you. I was going to do it. Anything that you needed. And I think at the time, because I think I said, oh, I can come round, whatever you need. But you needed that space, which was fine, and whatever you needed at the time. But yeah, I think it was like just a lot to take in, because I knew obviously, yours and your dad's relationship, and it was up and down. And I knew how much you'd done and how much love you had for him and still have for him, that it was just hard to hear.
Yeah, and I suppose from my perspective, it was a bit like I didn't really know how to handle it. So I think you did a really great job of just taking initiative and listening to me and taking on board any of the signs that I gave you of when I said I needed space, you gave me space, but you also didn't then take that as I want to be left alone forever.
No.
You continue to kind of check. Sorry, guys, that's my rabbits playing games.
I love that.
They're throwing toys.
They just want you to know they're here.
Yeah, Paddington. I'll put a photo in, or I'll post them on Instagram for everybody to see. But he's just laid down now. He's calmed down. He wanted to move his games so he could have a lie down. But yeah, you really took on board that, but you didn't just leave me. When I said I needed some space, that was like, okay, well, I'll take that message for today, but tomorrow I'm still going to be here, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day.
I started just texting saying, love you.
Yeah, you
Just
did.
love you all the time, just so you knew. Obviously, I love you, but I'm here. You know, I'm here. I'm always going to check on
Mm,
you. I'm not going to ask you, are you okay? I'm not going to ask you anything. Just that I love you. I'm here. And
yeah.
if you need me, where
And
I am.
I I obviously never asked you before, but did you, when Laura's mum died, obviously you were not as close with Laura,
No.
but you definitely
Yeah.
were friends, but also you watched me kind of support her as a friend during that time. We must have spoke about it. I would
Yeah.
have thought
Yeah.
we would have done. So was there anything at that time that you can think like, oh, I had spoke about it with Laura, or was it kind of just your own?
I think it was probably a little bit of both. I think you'd spoke about it before and said probably the same thing that, you just wanted her to always know that you were there in any way that she needed it. If she needed space, you'd give her space. If she wanted you to go around, you'd go around. Whatever she needed, you was going to be there for her. So I think I just took that and just thought the same things of that. I just want you to know that I'm here and in any way that you possibly needed, that I was going to be there.
And I'm just trying to think like if anybody's listening that maybe is in a similar situation to what you was at that time, and also reflecting back on the last episode, which you wouldn't have heard yet, but it will be out kind of,
Yeah.
when by the time that this airs, at that time we had some friends that maybe we thought that wouldn't, would be there for us that wasn't, and things. Paula finds this conversation
Yeah, I do.
particularly difficult. Because as I mentioned on the last episode, I think the people around us maybe were not quite as forgiving of that friend in that situation as maybe Laura and I kind of probably still are to some degree. But I think you found it particularly difficult because you couldn't comprehend.
No.
And listen, Laura and I mentioned it last episode. There, I think there's probably more to that story. There's more as to why that individual felt that they couldn't at that time. But I know that you found it difficult to be around that and not be able to really understand
Yeah.
how that person couldn't turn up and couldn't do those things. So I wonder, if you're talking to the listeners, what was it in particular that, like, other than the fact that you're one of my best friends, that, because so was that person, right?
Yeah.
That led you to want to be so kind of forthcoming with your like care, attention, just being there all the time.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, with obviously some of the people that you and Laura are friends with that weren't quite there for you, how you kind of expected, because, you are both definitely the type of people that you give 110% to anyone in your life and you should get that back. But I felt like even if you hadn't, you should always get that back anyway. They're
Yeah.
your friends, they're a huge part of your life. Like, we've spoke about this before. I will never understand ever, even, and I think even listening to the podcast myself, I will never understand anyone, especially those people that just don't get it. I don't understand how you
Mm.
can't see that your friend's in pain and your friend's hurting, and why would you not do anything possible to support them and be there for them? And I'll never understand that ever.
But I think that's probably why we get on so
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
because, and why now obviously you're closer to Laura than ever, is because all three of us are very similar in that
Yeah.
way. Every, I will go to war for my friends.
Yeah.
Like, I would literally,
100%.
whatever's going on in their lives. And, maybe at some point we'll probably get Paula back on to talk a bit more on in terms of her personal
Yeah.
experience, because I think it is really important to talk about grief in different ways, because I know for yourself you've not experienced a huge amount of grief in regards to death, but there's
Yeah.
definitely been experiences that you can talk to, and as friends for each other, like, it just wouldn't, it's almost second nature for myself anyway, and I would imagine you feel the
Yeah.
same, that it comes that, well, I don't care, I'm gonna be there for you,
Yeah.
like, whatever it
100%.
whatever it takes, I'll
Yeah.
be there, I'll drive. Like, Laura and Paula drove all the way to my dad's funeral for the day and back, it, like, down and back in a day to London, it's like a 4-hour journey each way, because they wouldn't have let me
No.
go to that funeral without being there and having my friends around me when they knew I need them most.
Yeah.
And that I will always be grateful for, because actually I did really need you there on the
Yeah.
day, and I didn't have to be sat, I had to do the rounds and I spoke to everyone. I
Yeah.
didn't actually spend a huge amount of time with either of you on the day of the funeral, but just knowing that you were
Yeah.
there, it was almost like a comfort blanket that I had, that if things got a little bit hard, I could go and find
Yeah.
you.
And I think it's really funny how you say, like, oh, they did this, they did that. When I know, and I'll speak for Laura because I'm sure she'd say the same thing. That's just a given.
Yeah.
That wasn't even, it never crossed my mind that I wasn't going to be there. It wasn't like, oh, well, I've got to drive for, no, that's a given. That's just like the least that we could have possibly done as your friends,
Mm.
100%.
I just think it's funny, isn't it? Like, you kind of, with your friendships, you always like to think that, like, you'll be there for each other
Yeah.
through anything, but you never truly know until the stuff actually happens. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. But when they do, and I speak about it the same way with Jamie, like, I'm a very independent person.
Yeah.
I've always have been, but I've never really, this sounds really, I was about to say self-centered, but I think it's just because of the way that I was brought up more. So I had to make sure that I was there for myself. So I've always been like that. So then when you eventually get to a point that maybe you do need
Yeah.
people to kind of pull you through and get you through that next stage in your life, because it's going to be a struggle, and it was,
Yeah.
like, you're just so appreciative of it, because you know that I never normally need it.
No.
But then I wonder, from your side, how did you find seeing me be just a complete different person, like, through my
Yeah, I
grief?
think it was like I've said to you, I said at the beginning, you are a really strong person, always been independent ever since, we've met. Because I always think like we're the same age and we're not. I wish I was the same age
She
as you,
does
but I'm
look the
not.
same age as me.
So I always think of you in that way, very strong willed, independent, would never do anything that they didn't want to do. So, like I've said, like at the funeral, seeing your friend in that way is just heartbreaking. And I think, you've touched on it that all three of us, including Laura, are very similar. And when we're all going through anything, we feel it. Like I could
Yeah.
feel it, that you were hurting, obviously, and really upset. So it was really hard to watch you go through it. Really, really hard. Um,
Were you worried about me at any point?
I think, yeah, I think I was worried about you all the time. I worry about you all the time anyway, because I just think that's what you do as a friend. Of course
Yeah.
you do. Like, you not always worry, but you just think about your friends a lot and you want them to be okay. And obviously, thinking back to yesterday, that's why I just texted and said, love you, because, you know, I do love you and I just wanted you to know that I was there
Yeah.
and
For
things like
context,
that.
it was the 2-year anniversary of my dad's death yesterday, which falls on, well, this year, the 10-year anniversary with my partner. So this kind of quarter, which is mad to say a quarter, but it's quite a hard time for me. So I've got my
Yeah.
dad's birthday in November, Christmas, just we spoke about it many a times, is quite difficult, and then in the Jan is the anniversary of his death. So again, even for me, I've got a group of friends that, even before I've posted anything on social media, before I've, maybe reminded people, however you want to put it, it's like it's ingrained in
Yeah.
them as much as it's ingrained as me. Like, oh my god, 2 years ago today, Shannon lost her dad, because it was such like a momentous thing. It just kind of overtook my life, but probably a lot of people around me's
Yeah.
lives at the time as well. I think I, gosh, you've probably seen me. As I mentioned, I was never angry, but God, I felt every other probably emotion, aside from happiness, um, along the way of that
Yeah.
that journey. And I think I'm listen, I cry at like animals and sad things, but in general about myself, I'm not a crier, right?
No,
Like I don't
I am.
yeah, I don't tend to get particularly emotive when talking about like my own hardships or my own hard times. I think the kind of most I've cried talking about my experiences growing up is probably was on the podcast doing
Yeah,
the episode about my
yeah,
dad. I think it just kind of brought a lot forward, and when you hear your story, like you're talking about your story, it's not often that you do that in full, full
yeah,
the span of
yeah,
time anyway. Um and yeah, I kind of applaud you for how you handled the whole I was about to say experience, it's not really experience, is it? But that
anyway,
time
yeah,
that time period, because I was really a different person.
yeah,
I didn't feel a lot of joy.
no,
I wasn't a very happy person. Um I wasn't doing anything that I wanted to do. I wasn't
no,
particularly spending very much time with my friends. Um I probably was quite secluded, but I knew that I didn't have to be.
yeah,
It was a choice, and I
yeah,
think that's what's really important, and we've spoke to that so much, Laura and I, when we had like an episode about kind of the what to do's and what not to do's, is just having options. I think is really
yeah,
healthy and helps you when you're going through grief. Like I know if I text you and said, "Can we go for a walk?" you would have turned up and we would have gone for a
yeah,
walk.
definitely.
And yeah, you just handled it really well. I wonder if you've got any advice for people.
Well, I think when I listened to the first podcast, I think I sent you both of you a voice note, didn't I? And I said, like, I've cried listening to it already, which is just typical me.
And the first episode wasn't even sad.
No. And I think it was, and I would say to anyone out there, if you have anyone, any of your friends, or anyone that's going through grief, to listen to it, because I actually loved listening to it in a strange way. From like, even though obviously we're really close and we're friends, like an outsider
Yeah,
listening to it, to actually hear that, you know, you do want to receive those text messages. No, you're not bothering me. I might not text you back straight away, but I love to receive them
yeah,
because I am going through this period of time and I want to know that you're there for me, but I might not text you back, but please do, because I can imagine there are people out there, and I've done it myself in other situations where you think, "Oh, I won't text because I'm going to bother them and I
yeah,
don't want to bother them." When actually listening to to your podcast, it made me think, and if other people listen to it, that actually, no, you're not. You might have to expect that they might not text you back for a couple of days, but you will, 100% appreciate the text message. So it's kind of knowing that, don't ever think that you're bothering them. Yeah, you and Laura both were going through a really tough time, obviously, but hopefully I can imagine that receiving those text messages were helpful.
yeah. And it was like Laura and I have said, it's either you need a lack of pressure or you
Yeah,
need someone to come and like put forward specific offers and gestures. Um, and again, when I was ready for them, that is
yeah.
exactly what you did. So I think it was just we're quite good at communicating, which is odd because you find that quite difficult in general.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll touch on that another time.
But actually, as like I feel like we read each other
Yeah, I
quite
think
well.
we can read each other's, which is really strange because it is hard to read each other's text messages. But I think we both know if we're ever not quite okay or going through something, or there's something going on,
Yeah,
we can tell by how we text each other.
yeah.
It's mad. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
I think it's when you
definitely.
spent 10 years
Yeah.
basically communicating, and we do call each other. We speak on
Yeah.
the phone loads
Yeah.
actually. Um and over voice note or
All the
whatever, we
time.
communicate a lot across a lot of different
Yeah.
platforms. You do just pick up on the nuances of behavior, don't you? Like I always know if I've asked you, do you want to do something? And you are like, she's got an issue, she struggles to say no, but sometimes I know she doesn't want to do something. And I know because you don't reply instantly. So I'm like, she doesn't want to do
She
it.
doesn't wanna do it.
So then I just go, okay, well, I'm not bringing it up again because she doesn't want to do it. So you can just pick up on those like different reads of people and understand it. I wonder like how would you describe how you I'm gonna pause because we'll cut that, but
Please don't. I'm joking.
the bunnies are doing what
Oh, they stop now.
grown-ups do, but they've both got no parts that make
Parts.
babies. Are
God
you
loves
done?
God loves a tryer.
Yeah, God loves a try a Paddington. I'm not sure you know where you're putting it, if I'm completely honest. Stupid. And this is why we don't usually record in my house.
But this is why we should, because this is great.
This is a different form of entertainment that
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure YouTube or Spotify is prepared for. Are you done?
They're done.
Okay, they're done.
We can
Thank
carry
you.
on.
So yeah, I think like how during that time after my dad passed away, what do you think it was that brought you and Laura closer? Just essentially check like because I know you spoke. It was funny because I kind of had an idea, but I didn't really know what they were talking about. But I knew that you were talking to Laura about me, and I also knew that
I
both
love
of you were
that.
messaging Jamie and checking in on me via him as well.
Yeah, so I think me and Laura used to speak, but probably not as much. And then obviously when your dad passed away, we seemed to get a lot closer. And I think I don't know, I suppose just all different things bring people together in different ways. Um and then I think watching you go through that, and because I know how similar all three of us
Yeah.
are, made me then really think about Laura and think,
How hard for
wow,
her, right?
she
She's
is literally
grieving her
just
mum whilst I'm going through grief.
been through something so similar not that long ago. And I just thought, I want to check in that she's okay, because she's the same type of person, right? She gives 110% to anyone in her life. There's no way she wouldn't do anything different. So that made me think I need to check in on her and make sure she's okay. So then, I message her separately, check in on her, and she check in on me. And like even now, I'll message her saying love you, like I do
Yeah.
with you, just
They
to
see each other without me now, which I just
I
feel like,
know.
how
I
rude's
know.
that?
We were messaging the other day about meeting up as well. Sorry.
Where's my invite?
I know, you get one, don't
Where
worry.
where am I in this equation? But no, and I like appreciate that because I think, especially when you're going through grief, um, sometimes the repetitiveness of having to tell people the same thing
Yeah.
again and
hmm
again and again it really really like takes a lot from
Yeah.
you. So having friends that communicate and being able to tell one person and then go, "Oh, would you mind just telling Laura
Yeah.
what I've just told you, please?"
Yeah,
Or
of
Laura, would you
course.
mind telling Paula for me so I don't have to
Yeah.
reiterate this? Whether
Yeah.
it be like why I don't want to go somewhere or, about the funeral or, maybe they're planning to come and see me, or it might be that I'm planning to go and see Laura, or, even just if me and Laura were finding it hard to speak to each other, it was being able to go,
Yeah.
Paula, have you spoke to Laura this week? How's she
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Without me having to necessarily message her
Yeah.
because again, Laura and I were very wary that depending on our own moods and place, we may have triggered each other. Which is funny, we had done a triggers episode and we should have mentioned that in particular in a bit more detail about how we set
Yeah.
each other off. But naturally, like you want to make sure that you're there for your friend, but sometimes you don't have the capacity when you're grieving yourself. And Laura and I were in a very specific situation where it was a very short period of time. But, even you could be years down the line and you would struggle maybe supporting a friend if it was a very similar,
Yeah.
experience. Or maybe
Yeah.
you've really struggled with your grief. So you find it really hard to support
Yeah.
people with theirs. So it was great to have a friend kind of in the middle of things that took it upon themselves. We didn't have to
No.
ask you, but to almost be a tiny bit of a go
Go
between
between. Yeah.
and be able to be there for all of us. And I remember you two had invited me out for dinner like not just me, that we were like, oh, let's go as a group. And then I couldn't go. Like I wasn't in the right headspace. And I said, you go out,
Yeah.
you go without me,
Yeah.
you go and have that dinner. And I think probably that was a bit of a catalyst
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
you being able, not that you hadn't been out before and
No.
met up for coffee and stuff, but based on where we all were in like the realms of our
Yeah.
own stuff going on, I think it probably allowed you both to just connect on a slightly different level without me being there
Yeah.
and being able to talk about your own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was nice for us to obviously we love spending time with you, obviously. But it was nice to kind of connect together um and talk about things on our own, I suppose, and me talk about what's going on in my life, Laura talk about what's going on in her life, and then I think from that, then we met up again and had a couple of bottles of wine, I
She
think.
mustn't have been pregnant at the
No, she
time.
wasn't pregnant at the time.
Very short window of
Very short.
opportunity.
um, and that was really nice because I think we were there for hours and we just talked about just anything and everything. And I think, both you and Laura are really good at listening, just amazing at listening and, you know, really listening, not just like passive listening, like you really listen to what anyone's got to say. And if you've got advice to give, you'll give advice. So, yeah, it was, I think then we really got to know each other, which
Yeah.
was really nice. And obviously, we've been close ever since, which has been lovely.
And when you reflect back, like, sadly, as horrible as it is, at some point all of us are going to go through grief. I wonder if seeing Laura and I go through it has made you think about grief in any particular way, or made you worried about experiencing it, or less worried about experiencing it, or
Yeah, I suppose in a strange way, like you then feel that, you know, I know, like hopefully you think that I've got a safe space that if I ever have to go through that, obviously like I've lost like grandparents and like
yeah.
things like that who I was close to, but I do think losing a parent is very, very different. Um and I think that knowing that I'd have you guys and that safe space when I need it and however makes you feel a bit that if it ever happened to me,
You wouldn't be on your
I wouldn't be
own.
on my own and I could go and I could go through it and come out the other end in ever which way. Obviously, I know, you'll be going through grief forever in that sense, but just knowing that I'd have that safe space and people to go to and I wouldn't be on my own.
And what made you want to get involved with the podcast? Because obviously, Laura and I started this. It was a bit of a came from nowhere
Yeah.
almost, didn't it? Um, and you obviously showed a lot of interest in it, wanted to, support us as much as possible. And then, when I was talking to you about, Laura's got two kids, I'm editing the podcast. I want to make sure that we get it
Yeah.
everywhere and get that, and you kind of said, well, what can I do to help? I
Yeah,
really want to, I
definitely.
really really want to help, and you're great with social media and stuff anyway, so obviously you said, well, I can do that, i
Yeah, I'll
can
do it.
i can pick that up, I can do that. What was it that kind of made you think, no, I want to support with that, I want to get involved?
I think like because obviously, hopefully you'll have seen it all over social media, all over my Instagram, that I just think that you and Laura are two of the most amazing people. And, I've spoke to quite a lot of people on my Instagram that message me and say, you know, what is this what is it all about? And I tell them, and it makes me smile so much because people are just like,
Oh.
that's amazing. And I'm
Oh.
like, it is amazing. It is unbelievable that you are turning something it's so sad. It's devastating. And trying to actually turn it into something that's positive. You're like
Mm.
taking it and putting it out there for anyone out there that, is struggling through grief or is a friend of someone who's struggling through grief, that, they can listen to this podcast and learn something. Even I listened to it and I was with you going through it. Even me listening to it, I've been like, oh, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that. Like I can see, you know, what's gone on there. Um, and I just think everyone should know. Everybody should know what you're doing.
But I think you have such a great twist on it as well, because you give us maybe some different insight on when we're talking about different things. Of like, even the other day I posted um a clip talking about when, and if you watched the episode a couple of weeks ago, about something I was doing where I was watching something again and again and again that made me sad about my dad. And actually, you haven't been through that, but you were like, I can relate to this.
Yeah.
I've done something similar
Yeah.
in it, something, that relates to grief. You talk about relationships or different stuff. And I was like, okay. And weirdly, so many people messaged me about that.
I
And I
can
was like, oh,
imagine.
thank God. I'm going to go and
Yeah.
tell my therapist I'm fine. Okay. I don't have anything I need to delve
No.
into, because all of us fuckers are
We
doing
all do
this.
it,
Okay.
literally.
I think she was specific about the word I used and what I needed to delve into, but she's right. I do. But actually, this normalizes so much. And I'm such a huge advocate for therapy. You know that for a
Yeah.
very, very long
Yeah.
time. I've been pushing hard all of my
100%. And
friends,
I agree.
you know
Therapy gal.
yeah, 100%. Oh, most of my friends are now,
Yeah.
I should be on some form of commission, but
Yeah,
I'm
you
not.
should.
Um, like, I just think it's so important. And I think because, and probably since you've started therapy, I think that's probably helped you understand even further,
Yeah.
perhaps why we are the way that we act the way that we act, why we probably all connect in such a way, because I think we probably all have parts of us that are things from where we've, how we've brought up or how we've
Yeah.
lived our lives that have led us to be all very similar people. But actually, when you're around people that are similar to you, that's great, because then it's a really positive energy.
Yeah.
Um, when you're not around people that have that same energy as you, sometimes it can become a negative. So I think we're just really lucky that we found our tribe, we found our group,
Yeah.
we found our people. I'm so thankful for you getting involved in the podcast, because I think it gives a different perspective. When you're ready, we'll talk about some different stuff, and we'll diversify from death into different realms.
Yeah.
A little bit like we did last week, right? We spoke about grief and friendships and how you deal with that. But realistically, guys, like, life is hard. It's not all about, when people pass away. Laura and I have gone through some really difficult times. Like I said, my whole life with my dad was
Yeah.
extremely difficult,
Yeah.
and had a load of different emotions, whether that be grief or something else that is definitely worth talking about. And we want to try and get some different voices, some different opinions. And Paula hopefully will be a regular
Yeah.
visitor of the podcast. Um, and if Laura and I are ever sick or can't make it, then you'll probably see
I'll
our
be
lovely Paula's face. So, and hopefully, if I can just train her on a bit of this, she might even be a producer for us one
Yeah, I'd
day.
love that. I absolutely love that.
She's gonna watch me edit one now. Um, but yeah, I think, like, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for coming on. And maybe, like,
Thank
if
you for
there's,
letting me come on.
oh, you're more than welcome. Come whenever. I suppose, like, is there any parting words that maybe, like, you have for the listeners, or that you think is worth kind of talking to?
Yeah, I just think that, well, for one, definitely listen to all the podcasts because as
I
anyone
agree.
who is um anyone who is, especially coming probably from my point of view as a friend who's supporting you through grief and Laura through um as well as much as I possibly can, listening to the podcasts are just massive. I just think you should because it will just show you that in some respects you can't do anything wrong. So don't think, oh, I'm bothering them or should I send the text? You may not get a text back for a few days or anything like that, but send the text because you know your friend will want to receive that text and will be grateful for it. Yeah, you might not get a text back straight away, but yeah,
I think
just
it's the good intent.
yeah,
It's the good
100%.
intent that means a lot, even if
Yeah,
you've not got the
definitely.
energy to quite get there. And I'm glad you took that away from, like, the podcast and stuff, because
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like, words don't do you justice when you thank the people around you for, like, what they've done for you individually. And I know you're going to say, well, that's a given. I never want to, like, but it's still, I'm still appreciative of
Yeah,
it,
I
as
know.
I know Laura is. And I think, I'm glad that the podcast has almost become a bit of a thing for you as well, where you go, oh, I did a good job. Like, I
Yeah.
was a really good friend. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
actually, I can walk away from
yeah,
something and know,
yeah,
all those things that I did. And listen, everyone's different. It's not to say that if Paula did the exact same things with us, with a different friend going through a similar thing, it would be the same. But I think it would be, because I think you can read people well, and I think
yeah,
you can gauge, and you're doing it with the intent that you care and you want to be there for someone, which means there's not much you can do wrong, if I'm
no,
honest.
yeah,
If you act with kindness,
yeah,
you lead with your heart, you lead with your friends, like, best intentions, I don't think there's much that you can do that
no, I don't think so.
will go wrong. And I hope that when you've experienced your own things and we've maybe shown you that back,
Yeah,
that it's been of a
definitely.
similar ilk, like,
Yeah,
and Laura and I mentioned this actually on the last episode. You wouldn't have heard it yet, but where we spoke about, as friends, we have a laugh and a joke and we muck around, but we never take the piss out of each other. We
no,
never tear each other down.
no,
We never make any jokes that might make you feel bad about yourself or whatever. And they're the kind of friendships that I think you need, right?
yeah,
They're like, I get it. We can all take the piss and all have a laugh and a joke, but I don't think you should ever make jokes about someone's, like, the way that they look or the way that they are. I think if you're joking, it should be about the scenario itself. And we're
yeah.
quite self-deprecating, to be honest. Like, we'd probably take the piss out of ourselves. I don't need, like,
Oh, 100%.
you don't need me to add to that. We'll
No.
make, like, jokes about the
Yeah,
situations, but I really feel like, as a a group of friends, we've got that energy right, where it's all, like,
yeah,
about
supportive.
positive,
Yeah, definitely.
supportive encouragement. And, we're not perfect friends. I'm
No.
sure there's things that we could be doing better, but
Eh.
oh, well,
Actually, I don't know about that. I think we're
I
pretty
don't
perfect.
know.
10/10.
10, 10. But, in general, like, if you're thinking about your friendships, or maybe you're not, like, you feel like you've not got those people around you that are giving you that kind of energy, communicate it, talk about it, but also reach out.
Yeah, and like obviously not going into the things I've been through over the past kind of like 7, 8 months, but I would definitely say if you are not getting, look, I am a people pleaser. I probably always will be. But if you're not getting the energy back that you're giving in, you know, you don't want that in your life. You need, and that's what I think, like you were saying, us three, that's what we do. We fill each other up all the
Yeah.
time about anything and everything. It doesn't matter. It could even be an outfit that we're wearing, and we'll be like, 10 to 11, 12 out of
Oh
10.
my
You
God, you
are
take my breath away.
away. 100%. We are all over that. So I think if you're not getting that back, then what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you here for, right? Are they
Yeah.
your like,
Yeah.
what are you giving to your friendships? And I think at different times, clearly there was periods of times where I couldn't give to you as much as you could give to me, like when I was going through
Yeah.
grief with my dad. But, you know, I think that's like any relationship. It's sometimes, I can't remember who said it. I don't think it's in a film or I've seen it. Like, it's always 100%, but sometimes someone can give 40 and the other
Yeah.
person can give
60.
60, and then it swaps round. And I don't think it's ever like 50-50
No.
completely.
Because I
I
think
think,
you're always going through something,
no,
no matter what it is.
100%, even if it's work, like,
Yeah.
you're a teacher, Paula's a
Yeah.
teacher. So I know that when she's having, like, examiners come in and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm not going to hear from this girl for a week. She's going through it and she needs some space, and then she needs a big glass of wine
Yeah.
afterwards.
And then it'll be 10-minute voice notes every day from then
Yeah.
moving forward.
And when it's parents' evening, wow, no, man.
Mm-mm.
Don't speak to me.
No.
But yeah, I think there's, like you said, even the small things, there's always something. So it's just about leaning into each other, being there for each other. And, in a world full of some really crazy crap going on and some really
Yeah.
mad conversations
Yeah.
and all stuff, be a Paula, you know? Be a really good friend. This one
Thank
over
you.
here. But yeah, thank you for listening, guys. And obviously, we miss you, Laura.
We
And
miss you.
we'll see you soon. And well, hopefully, next episode, Laura will be sat there as well.
She
And
will, I'm
Paula will
sure.
be in the background
Yeah, I'll be here
praising
somewhere.
us all.
I'll
Woo!
be like 12, 10.
Yeah, you've killed it,
You've done
girls.
it.
What's that from Mean Girls where she's the mom? She's like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm a cool mom. No, I'm a regular mom. I'm not,
Oh,
what is it? I'm a cool mom, not a
I'm a
regular
regular
mom.
mom.
You go, girls. Like that with her boobs.
Yeah,
Woo.
that'll be me.
Yeah.
That'll be me. Behind the camera.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously Laura will be back. We'll revert back to some episodes. We've got some guests coming on, some guests that you've found.
Yeah. And
which
that's what I love. I think like I've loved being involved in that way. And actually I've managed to, through the podcast and social media, get to know other people that maybe I would never have got to know
Yeah.
and hear about their experiences from different points of view. And I've loved that too. So it kind of like, I know,
I love that.
it's bringing us together.
Just all,
Can I say?
just what, like peace and love, guys.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Obviously, a slightly different one, but I hope hearing from Paula has been a slightly different experience. If you've got a glass of wine in your hand, cheers.
Drink it.
Drink it. Yeah. If it's 8 o'clock in the morning, don't.
Unless you're at the airport.
Yes, which I will be
Which
tomorrow,
you will
guys.
be. So drink it. 7
And I'll be editing this podcast on the plane. Let's hope that it works. If you don't see this until a week after Sunday, you know why. But yeah, give us a follow, give us a like, subscribe on YouTube, please. They're kind of trickling up little bit by little bit. And we're, thanks to Paula, we're getting more and more followers on different platforms. But it'd be great for you guys to give us a follow, subscribe, listen on Spotify as well, if that's more your thing than watching. It's there, you can listen to it, you can hear our dulcet tones.
Gorgeous voice.
Gorgeous. Not quite,
Stunning.
but I'm trying. But thank you and see you next week.
I know, thank you.